In 17th century Maharashtra, society was deeply fractured along rigid caste lines. Political decrees and royal edicts repeatedly failed to bridge the divide between the elite and the common people. True cohesion required a shift in the soul. Saint Tukaram recognized this. He bypassed political channels entirely, turning instead to the devotional movement of bhakti to reach the masses directly. He composed abhangs. Abhangs are short, powerful devotional poems written in everyday Marathi rather than elite Sanskrit. These poems spread rapidly from village to village, dissolving entrenched caste barriers and creating a shared cultural language for the first time. These verses turned private religious devotion into a public social movement. 4 centuries later, millions of people still gather for the same annual pilgrimages, speaking the same vernacular language Tukaram helped codify. In the 1930s, India was accelerating toward political independence, but it faced a structural void. The country possessed almost zero indigenous scientific or industrial infrastructure. The catalyst to fill this void was Homi Jahangir Babur. He was a wealthy, Cambridge-educated polymath and physicist who had embedded himself among the world's leading minds in quantum mechanics. This animation illustrates his foundational work, the Baba-Heitler theory of cosmic ray cascades. It shows a single, high-energy primary particle from space as it strikes the Earth's atmosphere. Upon impact, it interacts with air molecules to create an exponentially multiplying shower of secondary particles. Zooming in on one of these collisions, we see what is now known as Baba scattering. This is the specific mathematical calculation of how an electron and a positron collide and scatter, proving exactly how energy interacts and multiplies at the quantum level. For Baba, this mechanism offered a practical blueprint. A single, highly energized catalyst, positioned correctly, could generate a massive, self-sustaining system of energy. In 1939, a brief vacation in India turned permanent when the outbreak of the Second World War stranded Baba at home. He realized he could act as the primary particle for his own developing nation. In 1944, he drafted a letter to the philanthropic Tata Trust. He proposed building an elite institute for atomic research in a country that did not yet possess a reliable electrical grid. At that exact moment, Western powers were secretly racing to weaponize the atom. Baba, conversely, saw nuclear physics as the only viable engine to generate limitless industrial electricity for millions of people. He understood that throwing off colonial rule would mean little if the country remained reliant on foreign powers for its energy. India had to engineer its own power source before the global community locked down the technology. The very first institutional reaction fired in 1945 with the founding of the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, or TIFR. TIFR is a premier institution dedicated to advanced research in physics, chemistry, and mathematics, establishing a homegrown base for elite Indian scientists. The second reaction followed 3 years later. Baba convinced the newly independent government, led by Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, to establish the Atomic Energy Commission in 1948. The massive third reaction materialized at Trombay by 1956. Here, India completed construction on Asia's first nuclear reactor outside of the Soviet Union. The cascade expanded further in 1962, when Baba laid the institutional groundwork for INCOSPAR. INCOSPAR was the Indian National Committee for Space Research, the predecessor to India's modern space program. Centuries earlier, Tukaram democratized spirituality so the masses could build social self-reliance. In the 20th century, Baba democratized quantum physics so the nation could build geopolitical self-reliance. Baba designed an interlocking system of education and research. By training the next generation of scientists within these walls, he ensured the cascade would continue to branch out long after he was gone. By 1955, Baba was serving as president of the United Nations Conference on the Peaceful Uses of Atomic Energy in Geneva. He argued fiercely to the international community that atomic power must be explicitly redirected away from military dominance. He insisted it be used as a tool to lift developing nations out of poverty. Then, at the height of his influence in 1966, a commercial aircraft crashed into the unforgiving peaks of Mont Blanc, killing Baba instantly. Returning to this animated diagram of a cosmic cascade, there is a physical law at play. Even when the primary particle is destroyed, the shower of secondary energy continues to multiply. That institutional shower continued. India now stands as a sovereign nuclear power and operates ISRO. ISRO is the Indian Space Research Organization, the agency responsible for India's independent satellite launches and lunar missions. National sovereignty is the cumulative effect of these internal cascades. It is the shared identity forged by a 17th-century poet and the indigenous power engineered by a 20th-century physicist, both filling the vacuum where a nation's soul and its energy belong.